Paul, thank you so much for joining us here on the Pet Biz Project. It's great to have you on.
It's a pleasure, Tarryn. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So let's get straight into it. First of
Yeah.
all, can you tell us how you got started in live events and how it's led to you working in the pet festival space?
Look, my life in events has come about quite circuitously, I suppose. I started off. Well, I won't go all the way back, but I kind of started off as an actor, and I was producing theatre as well. And the acting school that I went to really taught us not to wait for work, but to create your own work. So I did a lot of that, and then I kind of uh, wasn't getting much work. As an actor, I was a very good barista, um, as many
It's
of us
usually what
are,
we fall to.
and I just I kind of fell into um, I fell into it really. I'd been working. Actually, I wasn't a barista at that time. I'd been working in sales and marketing for a hotel chain, and two job opportunities came at me at the one time, and one was for another hotel chain, and the other one was for an event management company.
Yeah.
And the recruiter that I was talking to said, this could be a really good marriage of all of your background and skills. And I thought, yeah, actually, that could be. And I've been here for 25 years in this industry.
Wow.
Takes sometimes it takes us a long while to find our place in the world, and it took me a while, but
Yeah.
here I am, and it's a great industry to be a part of. It's an incredibly challenging industry, but it's great to be a part of.
Fantastic. And so you've worked in the live event space for a very long time, obviously, but
Yeah.
how you've just recently come into the pet space, is that right?
Yeah, so I've been running exhibitions and trade shows for about, well, I had been until this show up for about 23 years, I think it
Mm.
was. Don't quote me on that. It's a long time. Um, and look, I've run everything from trade shows and conferences in oil and gas and
Yeah.
construction through to interior design shows. I ran the Melbourne Home Shows for a while. I founded a show called Motor Classica, which was a very high-end classic cars show. I ran the National 4x4 show and a whole bunch of others. And I had been running a show for a conference for the power and utilities sector, so a trade
Yeah.
event. And I had an opportunity. I've known Jason, the owner of Pet Projects International, for a long time. In fact, I used to work for the company that his father founded. So we knew each other personally and reputationally, and he'd made a number of approaches to me to come on board, and the time just wasn't right during those times. And then, we both felt that the time was right about a year ago to come on board and run these festivals for him. Um, Jason did a great job. He's quite the entrepreneur in coming up with this idea of a dog lovers festival and then hence a cat lovers festival as well. And I remember him sort of when he was first thinking about it, first developing the idea. And I said to him at the time, I think that's a great idea. I'll be interested to see where you go with it. Well,
Yeah.
now we're 12 years on, and those shows have experienced their ups and their downs from COVID, of course, and the recovery that's happened after that. And I think that, now is a good time for me to be on board to sort of take the shows to the next stage of their development. And sometimes with anything, it needs that outside eye to come in and look at things in a different way,
Yeah.
which I do. And as much respect as I have for the history of this show, which I have an enormous respect for, I can see opportunity also. And we've started to take some steps in those new directions, embracing new technology, for instance.
Yeah.
That's really exciting and really is there to give back more opportunity to our exhibitors and our sponsors.
Yeah. Fantastic. And if somebody's listening to this episode and they've never actually attended one of the dog lovers or cat lovers festival events, can you describe for us what it's like, where they're held and how often they're held and how they're run?
Well, Taryn, it's a vibe
Yeah.
to say what the
I've
young
been to
people
many
say.
myself. Yeah.
It's a vibe. Look, I mean, it's really interesting. The Cat Lovers Festival and the Dog Lovers Festival are quite different vibes to each other,
Yeah.
but we do co-locate them now. The Dog Lovers Festival is very bold and brash and upfront and in your face, and has lots of entertainment and dog sport. And people that own dogs are very different to people who own cats, and are,
Yes.
sort of really into them. I have a dog and a cat, so I
Yeah.
kind of can attest to that. But I think it's really exciting and fun, and the emphasis is on happy, healthy dogs. I
Mm.
think the Cat Lovers Festival is quite different. It's got an energy about it, but I feel it's more like a fan event. If
Yeah.
anyone's ever been to something like Comic-Con or Supernova, those big
Yeah.
types of fan events, I think it's a lot like that. We have people come along and dress in cosplay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that fandom sort of stuff around it. But
Yeah.
both shows are created or founded on the same principles, and that is meeting cats and dogs, learning which cat or dog is the right fit for your family,
Yeah.
and then bringing together the companies that service that um, pet family dynamic, and really bringing them to the front and center as well in that equation. So, look, I think that if you are a cat lover, there's really no other show in town. You've got cat competitions where cats can go and get judged, just like you have dog competitions, but there's not really anything like the Cat Lovers Festival. And with dogs, I think, there's a lot of opportunities to see dogs performing. You can see them at the Royal Show, you can see them at dog competitions and so on. And if you go overseas, there's events like Crufts, I should say,
Yes. Yeah.
and Good Wolf, which are big dog shows. But I think that what the Dog Lovers Festival does is capture the essence of all of that stuff and put it in an environment where there's also vendors and sponsors that can leverage their brands, and it becomes a kind of a really interesting symbiosis, I suppose, of brands and experience. And where we're trying to take both of these shows is into that experiential sector, into that kind of space of immersing yourself in an experience and in a brand, and so forth. And that's, I think, if we talk about the challenge of live events, that's one of the challenges of live events, right?
Yeah.
But I think the word festival is a really interesting one, Tarryn. These shows started off as the Cat Lovers Show and the Dog Lovers Show,
Yeah.
and they rebranded a couple of years ago to Festival. And I think that really captures the vibe and what we're trying to achieve. That this is not just an expo. It certainly has that as a component of it, and a key component of it, but it's really about that level of immersion and fun and celebration of everything that we love about our cats and our dogs.
I think it's great that you have brought the dog and cat lovers festivals together at the same time these days. I just think there are so many, like yourself, there's so many multi-pet sort of households now where it's just being able to make it easier for families to come along, and there's not the separate expense and time required to go to two separate shows, but to be able to look at the different types of environment with those two festivals coming together, which I think is fantastic. It was a great idea to bring those two together.
Yeah, well, we figured the same. Previously they'd been held apart. There was two different
Mm.
entry fees. There was two different exhibitor fees. And now we're in a cost of living crisis, and the pet sector has not necessarily done particularly well after COVID. Certainly very well during COVID, but not after COVID. And so to remove those barriers to attendance, sure, we take some cut on revenue, of course.
Yeah.
People are now only going to one show, but I think it makes sense. You come to one show, you get the other show for free. You can do it all in the one day. And it just, I think, gives something back a bit. It makes a bit more sense for people to be there. Hopefully it removes some barriers to them attending. Maybe it means that, the whole family can come. Maybe it means that more people can come. That's the risk that we take, I suppose, as a business. But more importantly, it gives something back to community, and says, hey, this is not a cynical cash grab from
Mm.
you. We're not exploiting pet owners. We're genuinely trying to service the needs of pet owners and provide them with an opportunity that would otherwise not exist.
Yeah. And you're now running in, is it Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane? Is that right?
That's right, yes. So
Yeah.
Brisbane, this year we're not doing. It'll be next year.
Yeah.
But yes, Sydney and Melbourne are annual events. Yeah, correct.
Okay. And does one typically tend to be bigger than another, or do they all tend to be about the same?
I think we started in Melbourne, so
Mm.
that tends to be our hero event in many ways. And that's undergone some massive transformation over the years. I think
Yeah.
we started off long before my time at the Royal Exhibition Building, and that's a fantastic venue to do a show.
Yeah.
I've done many shows there, and we've gone to the MCEC, and now we're at Melbourne Showgrounds. And we had our first show at Melbourne Showgrounds last year. We took away a lot of lessons from that. A lot of
Yeah.
things that we could do better or do differently, and a lot of opportunities for growth and difference too. And
Okay.
so, what I think people that visit the Melbourne show this year will see is a really different show to last year,
Right.
but a show on steroids. We're
Okay.
doing some great things in Melbourne, really exciting stuff. For Sydney, I think it's no less important, obviously. Sydney's a big population centre. We're out in the west of Sydney, out in Homebush, the showgrounds out there. Um, it doesn't have the range for outdoor activity that the Melbourne Showgrounds has. So I think it's contained within a more compact footprint, but all the entertainment is still there.
Yeah.
And what we've done is, we've taken that word festivalize, and we use this term in the exhibition industry, festivalization.
Okay.
And that's what we've really done in Sydney too. And I think probably Sydney was the guiding light for us in how can we achieve that. And it has informed our development of Melbourne. So look, different shows. If you came to Sydney, it'll be a very different show to Melbourne. Um, Both of similar size, but Melbourne was our first.
Yeah.
And I think that as a result has got a special place in people's hearts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to say, I was there at the Melbourne Showgrounds at the last one, and I thought it was fantastic. It was a
Thank you.
great venue to have everything, and it felt like you could spend the whole day there. The size and expanse of it all, it was that kind of festival feel, like being at lots of great live entertainment, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, you'll see even more of that, I think, this year.
Good. And so now turning it to the actual exhibitors, the people that are there displaying their products, their services, connecting with pet parents. A lot of small pet brands or small to medium pet brands, I suppose, feel very experienced now in terms of selling online and connecting with their audience online, and even selling their products through retail stores. But I commonly hear from people that they're really struggling to then translate that experience to live events and showing up and getting a great result from those live events. Can you walk us through the process that you sort of take brands through when they come to you to look at exhibiting for the Dog Lovers and Cat Lovers Festival? How do you help them to achieve great results?
That's a really great question, Taryn. I think it's something that we have the capacity to do a lot differently and perhaps even better than a lot of other companies that might be out there
Mm.
running live events. I mean, we can take a very hands-off approach with exhibitors if they think if they're set on what they want to do. But similarly, if an exhibitor is a newbie and they come to us and they say, look, I have no idea where to start, then we can really hold their hand and take them through the process. I think the big lesson for anyone new, and in fact, no, forget that, not just anyone new, anyone exhibiting in shows, the big mistake that many of them make is that they assume that the organizer is there to do everything.
Yep.
And that's just simply not true. We're there to provide an opportunity, and your job starts when you sign that contract and pay the bill. It's not an easy way of marketing live events. In fact, it's possibly the hardest. But on the flip side of that, it gets the best results. And it's also the most measurable way of marketing your product. If we have a bad show and we get the wrong audience for you, then we're completely exposed and you'll come and tell us to our face. If you place an ad on social media, then you don't know necessarily how it goes. You don't know how many sales it drives. You don't know whether it's been successful or unsuccessful. You don't know if you get some feedback certainly on a thread, but you don't really know how to measure that effectively. Similarly for the visitors, they measure the effectiveness of it as well. They'll tell us if they don't like it or if they think that they should see something else there. But also they tell us the good stuff about it as well. I think it's a challenge, but it's also absolutely key for online brands to get face-to-face with people. All the latest results from surveys in the event industry tell us that Gen Zs are craving the face-to-face experience, right? You don't have to look very far to find that out. It's well-known research. They want authentic face-to-face interactions, and what they don't want is just this nameless, faceless contact online. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really important to get face-to-face with these people who are the buyers that are coming through. What we do is we say to you, right, well, what do you want to achieve out of the show? Are you interested in pushing your brand message? Are you interested in collecting data? Are you interested in making sales on the site, on the day? Are you interested in making sales post-event? Are you interested in networking with your current customers? Are you interested in sampling? Are you interested in feedback? And when we know those measurables that exhibitors have, when we know those KPIs that they're going to put on a marketing experience, then we can work with them to help them realize that. So, for example, I'll give you an example. A brand, and I would say that they're a large brand. I had a meeting with a couple of weeks ago, and they did a show with us, and they were a sponsor. And they said to me, Paul, we didn't really get much out of it. I said, what did you want to get out of it? And they said, well, we didn't really know what we wanted to get out of it when we started. And I said, well, that's good to acknowledge now. Moving forward, what do you want to get out of it? Oh, well, we are only interested in a certain number of people. We're not interested in everybody because not everybody's going to be interested in our product, but there's a certain number of people that are. I said, so you want to get to that 300 people out of 30,000 people, you want to get to 300 that are really important to you. And they said, yes, essentially, yes. And I said, well, a branding experience, putting your brand on as a sponsorship on something is not going to achieve that for you. And sampling, doing blind samples to a bunch of people who are lining up and they don't know what they're lining up for all the time is not going to help you either. You're just going to burn through money. I said, what if we could create an activity whereby you are primarily interacting with the people that think that they can gain value from using your product? And this company said, well, that's exactly what we want, but can we do that? Yes, of course you can do that. And there are ways and means of doing it. We've got a show app this year, which is new. We can organize meetings on a show app, private consults where you can learn about the brand face to face. We can do follow-ups. We can do a special offer. We can do all sorts of things that allow you to measure that opportunity. And so you can go away and 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, you can say to me, well, this is what we achieved. And it exceeded our KPIs or it didn't meet our KPIs. But at least we know. So the first thing I encourage exhibitors to do is be really transparent with us about what you want to achieve.
Okay.
If you just want to sell units at $5 each, then you want a lot of people. That's all you want, a lot of people to come through the door. And you want to price your product so that it's easy for them to digest, easy for them to a consumer to put their hand inside their pocket and buy it. Right? If it's overpriced, it's not going to sell. If you want to sell volume of overpriced stuff, you're never going to do it at an event like this. So we can take, that's just one or two examples. We can take those objectives of a company and we can work with them to ensure that they're not over investing and that they're investing in the right places to get the outcomes that they're looking for. And then we would encourage them, okay, so here's the roadmap for success for you at a show like this. These are some of the things you've got to do. And like I say, don't rely on the organizer to do everything. You've got to promote as an exhibitor. You've got to promote to all of your customers. Because here's what the USP really is for exhibitions, right? If I've got 300 exhibitors in a festival and each of them is promoting to all of their customers,
Yeah.
then you get the flow on effect from those 300 exhibitors and all of their customers, most of which aren't competing with you. They're complementary or completely unaligned. You're getting the value of the marketing of all of those companies, at that event. That's the first thing. And then we do our marketing on top of it. And, we throw a large sum of money at it too. So that's the USP. This is a community, we talked earlier on, Tarryn, about community. This is a community of exhibitors, a community of buyers, a community of sellers. And that's the leveraging opportunity that exhibitors have got. So we would say, promote it. Use the assets that we're giving you to help promote it. Lean in. If we're doing a prize draw and you want to get a database of people, then join the prize draw. Use the scanning app so you can scan visitors, so you can get their data and market to them afterwards. I mean, all this stuff is free, or as part of your participation. So use that stuff so that you can measure the success of the event. Don't just think that you can sign a contract, turn up on the day and make $1 million, because that doesn't work like that.
No, definitely. And I think it's great that you have that consultation aspect to, helping the pet brands when they're coming there to get the best out of it. Because I think, maybe if some that have maybe exhibited in previous years or, 5 years ago or something like that, they may be reluctant to come back because they don't realize that's now available. So I think that's fantastic that you provide that level of support and guidance and coaching, to help them to determine the best way to be able to get the right results from the event.
Yeah, look, Tarryn, I think the business has changed over, well, certainly since
I think every
COVID.
business has changed, hasn't it, over the last 5 years?
Yeah, they change all the time, but particularly since COVID. And I think that for the exhibition industry in particular, we have realised, not just us, but the industry has realised that collaboration and consultation is far more important. And whereas maybe pre-COVID, and certainly in the first 10 years of my career, there was a cohort of exhibitors that would just exhibit at everything and do it as part of their marketing plan. And now it's not a no-brainer necessarily for people, or coming out of COVID, they're very particular about where they spend their money. They think that they can get reach and frequency through social media, but they can't really build relationship through social media, and you can't attest to quality through social media. We joke about places like Temu and Alibaba, and I've got to say, I've bought things online. Well, I paid for things online that I never got, and there's a lot of lack of trust of online e-commerce these days as well. So as much as it's an opportunity, it's also a challenge, and the solution to that challenge is face-to-face.
Yeah. No, that's great, I think. And you mentioned that there's changes to the app, or that you've got new features to the app this year.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, the app's brand new, right?
Okay.
Now, exhibitions have been flogging off apps for 10 years now with various levels of success. And pre-COVID, they were pretty low levels of success, really. But the app world or the event app world has changed a lot since they first started. And now event apps offer really a great opportunity for another layer of immersion and experience. So our apps serve as a show guide. They serve as a map and a guidebook. They serve as a promotional tool with ads. They serve as a data capture and collection point. So, for example, all of our exhibitors can download the app for free, and then they can scan the people that come onto their stands through the app. That's a really important technology, because previously organisers had asked you to rent a tablet, which you would then use to scan people, and even then it was mostly just for business to business shows rather than B2C. But now all of this can be done through app. And then we have other levels of immersion. So we're running competitions through the app. We've got stage timetables in the app. Um,
Yeah.
we've got a game in the app that you can play on site for prizes. So there's a whole lot that you can do through the app. And of course, every time a visitor engages with the app and with a page that's related to one of our exhibitors or an ad, then they get the data.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool, and look, it saves the environment. We don't have to print things, which are, you know, people are moving away from that now,
Yes.
as you've
Nobody wants to
talked.
print. Yeah.
No, so much of our lives are lived online now. So the app is an extension. We carry it around on our mobile phone, and it's easy,
Yeah.
and
And I
and that's
think,
the way it should be.
I mean, one of the things we see as, working with pet brands on their marketing is, some of the huge results that they can get from these live events isn't just from the live event itself, like you were saying. It's the follow up afterwards.
Mhm.
It's the email list that you build. It's the connections that you make through the competitions and the giveaways and the different, activities you might be running. So to have all of that data and not just an email address, but to be able to gather a whole lot more information from people just is hugely valuable for that relationship building and continuing on that relationship after the event.
Yes, that follow up piece is really important, I think, Taryn. A lot of companies a lot of companies come to this show and they sample and they have huge queues of people, and in some cases, they take their information and they put it in their data bank. Um, but then they've got no real strategy for following up on that. It just becomes data. It gets added to a database, and they get an email every so often. And sometimes it's too often, and people unsubscribe. But what companies have got to do is they've got to have a strategy. So now that I've got that data, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to leverage that data? And as again, I've had conversations with companies around this. It's not always necessarily as simple as sending an email or making a follow up call or something saying, "Oh, do you want to buy our product?" It's about nurturing that lead. In a sales environment, we talk about nurturing leads, right? It would be foolish to think that I can pick up the phone and sell a stand to somebody on one phone call. It just doesn't happen. We build relationships. So we use this data then. There's got to be a strategy to take that data and build a relationship out of that data.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's by sending a gift afterwards or a discount or driving someone to a retail outlet, doing joint promotions, making them a member of the club, giving back value, that sort of thing to make people go, well, actually, I prefer this brand over that other brand I was using because look how nicely they treat me.
Yeah.
And I still haven't bought anything from them yet, so I'm going to buy from them. It's all part of that strategy. It all comes out of events, and it's all the sale at the end is all attributable to the event.
Yeah.
And I think that some companies, because events are very time consuming and they're exhausting when you do 2 big days and 30,000 people, you get to the end of it and go, oh gosh, thank God that's over. I don't want to think about that till next year. And they drop the ball on it. But
Yeah.
really, honestly, the game starts when the
Yeah.
show finishes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see a lot of business owners take a break after the event and, take a holiday or something because they're exhausted, but it's actually better if they take a break before the event, get their energy up because, yeah, there is so much to do after the event to keep that energy going,
Yeah,
and to keep
absolutely.
the people engaged. And I think what I see from the live events is that it's not just connecting with people that are directly going to be purchasing your products. It can sometimes be connecting with people that are then going to tell their friends and family about your products. It's that ripple effect that you get for that brand exposure outside
Yeah,
of the event as well. So
that's right.
it's which is huge. So I suppose from a logistical point of view, one of the concerns I hear from the smaller pet brands is like, oh, I don't stand a chance at these live events because all these bigger brands are giving out huge amounts of free product and samples and things like that. And as a small brand, I just can't do that myself. It's not viable financially. So that's where I suppose, like you were saying, all those other activities can come into play, having, competitions, having activities that draw people in. Is that what you'd recommend for the smaller ones that are on a much lower budget?
I do, but I'd go back a step, Taryn, and the
Mm,
first question I'd ask them is, what's your point of difference?
yeah,
Why should I, as a visitor, get excited about what you've got to offer? Is it because you're a cheap price point? Is it because you're made in Australia? Is it because you're high quality? Is it because you've got innovation or invention? What is it that's great about your product? Why should I be interested in the first place?
yeah,
Now, they should know the answers to those questions because they are the owner of the product, right? So they
yeah.
should know what the USP is. First, you've got to articulate that to me, and then you've got to articulate that to the crowd. So why should people come to your stand even though it's a 2x2? The reality is, Taryn, that actually the opportunity is greatest for these small companies, not less. It's
Mm,
greater. Um, you know, people are used to seeing. We've got Whiskers as a brand at the show. Now, Whiskers aren't there to sell cat food, right?
yeah,
Um, and people know Whiskers. We all know Whiskers. We've seen it for years and years and years. Um, they don't necessarily need to be there other than to reinforce their brand position, but they're certainly not competing with a small company that does cat or dog treats, right? The opportunity is there to stand out from the crowd by the innovation or the USP that you are offering to the audience. So once you can articulate that, then you've got to lean into it at the show. And you've got to set yourself fair KPIs too, achievable KPIs. Um, I would hate for somebody to come into the show thinking that they can make $1 million in retail selling a $2.50 product,
yeah,
because that won't happen, right? Now that's extreme and nobody thinks that, but some people have that mentality, and I would firstly say to them, well, that's not going to happen. That's not
yeah.
going to happen. If you want that, you're not going to get it at our show. You go and do the Easter show, and maybe you'll get something not near that, but maybe closer to it.
Mm,
Um, I think that it's eh, people have to think strategically about what they want, and there are a number of steps to making a sale. And I'm not going to go into a sales 101 seminar
yeah.
with you or your listeners, but I mean, think through the equation, right? What do I want to get out of it? What is my point of difference? How can I lean into that in the show? It's often not about sampling. It's about it's a it could be about sampling. But maybe it's not about sampling. Maybe it's a toy. So maybe you need some kind of interactivity whereby people are playing with the toy with a dog, or that kind of thing. I mean, this is top of the head sort of stuff.
But the
But
gamification sort of side of it.
yes,
Yeah,
again, we think about immersion, right? About experience. People want authentic experiences. If you can give someone an authentic experience with your brand at a live event like this, it doesn't matter whether you're on 4 square meters or 400 square meters.
yeah,
It's about the quality of the experience. And that's really important. And you answered the
yeah.
question rather than me then, Taryn. And that's it. That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
And I think it's, something that I know we've spoken about before, but, quite often, I'll go to these live events and I see so many business owners standing at the back of their booth on their phone, scrolling, not engaging with the audience. Their body
Yeah.
language is typically, like, I'm an introvert, don't come near me.
Yeah.
And, it's because quite often, especially small pet business owners, they've come up with a fantastic solution, a great idea for pet parents, but they're not necessarily extroverts or people that want to get out there and have those sort of walk up to people and have a conversation or draw them in with a gamification aspect
Yeah.
with their business. And it's just having that very different growth mindset when it comes to these events that you can't, just stand back and be a wallflower,
No,
unfortunately.
you can't. And look, you know what? I've seen big companies do exactly the same thing. I would say
Okay.
you've got to have your best, most knowledgeable salespeople on your stand for
Mm.
exhibitions because they are hard work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to understate what exhibitions are all about or what live events are all about. I'm not going to say to people that they're easy and you're going to see the dollars roll, and you've got to work them. Exhibitions, live events, they're an opportunity, and they have to be leveraged just like any other opportunity. But, you do have to have well-briefed people, good people, incentivized people on the stand. They've got to be engaged and engaging. They've got to be interested. They've got to be authentic. But I would say to small businesses, live events can be a lifeline for your business. They can be a real proper business development opportunity. And I would say to small and medium businesses, get in on it. Get in on the opportunity that live events offer. But, be honest about what you want to achieve. Be honest if you've never done one. If you need help, reach out and ask for advice on how to do it. And I'm not even talking about us now. I'm talking about any exhibition in any industry. Test your salesperson or your account manager. Test them on how they can help you, on what the offering is, on how they can advise you to leverage that opportunity as best they can. I'd like to think that my team are pretty good at that now. Have they always been? Maybe not. Are all exhibition sales teams like that? No. But I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to come into it without ego and say, right, this is my problem. We exist because people have a problem, not because they have all the answers. Here's my problem. I need to up my sales, or I need to get my brand out there. I've got a brand new product. I've invented this thing. Be upfront about what you've got. Be upfront about the problem that you've got. Let us know the outcome you would like, and then be really open to that kind of collaboration that then comes when we say, well, what about this? What about that? What sort of budget have you got? Be honest about what sort of budget you've got. We can do more with $5,000 than we could with $5, but we don't necessarily need $5,000. You know what I mean? So don't try to presume too much. And the only other thing I would say is look at what you are getting for your investment. With your investment with us, it's not just about buying a stand and that's it, see you later. You get the show app, you get those networking opportunities, you get the collaboration piece, you get a really easy online exhibitor portal, you get lots of promotion through our website. In fact, for the first time this year, we're actually setting up mini websites on our website for every exhibitor.
Wow.
So
okay.
you get even more value. Now, when someone says to me, oh yeah, but I can do this show for and get a table for $500, great. Have you got an exhibitor listing on the website? No. Have you got a show app? No. How important are you to their business? Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know if you're important to their business, then you're not important to their business. Every exhibitor for us is important to our business. We're a small family business, just like they are, most of them. And so we do work really hard to try to get them the result that they want.
Fantastic. And I suppose from a logistical point of view, there must be a lot of complexity to having so many animals and people in the same place at an event like this. How do you ensure everything goes smoothly and the safety and well-being of the animals is paramount? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, the safety and well-being of the animals is absolutely important, and we have an animal welfare plan in place. We have safety officers that make sure that, any dog that might be demonstrating aggressive tendencies is removed or relieved. We don't allow people to bring their dogs or cats to the show from the public, because that's unpredictable. So we do sort of mitigate the potential, for disaster, if you like, by having those processes in place right at the outset. But it is challenging, when you've got the public and you've got dogs in particular, and you've got stuff going on and you've got loud noises for the cats, loud noises and distractions and so on, and food, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. I've only been here I've done 2 shows now, Sydney and Melbourne last year, and I was only here for a couple of weeks before I worked on the Sydney show. I've not, touch wood, experienced any major upsets, but we're
Right.
always on the lookout for it. And I think that we plan in advance. We've got a lot of experience. We've got more than 10 years of running the Dog Lovers Festival. And I think that, that experience tells at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
Fantastic. And I know you've only done a couple of shows so far, but what's sort of the most unforgettable dog festival moment you've witnessed?
I think, Tarryn, rather than a particular moment, I think that it's this bringing together of community.
Yeah.
I think it's a really beautiful thing to see. You know, Pet ownership can break down a lot of barriers. Pet ownership, the bond you form with your dog and the bond that you share with other pet owners who also, have those bonds with their pets, it transcends social class, it transcends salary, it transcends politics, and it can bring people into a room, and essentially those people have commonality. They are part of community.
Mm.
And like I said, it doesn't matter who they voted for. It doesn't matter what they do for a job. I have a Great Dane. I have a natural affinity with Great Dane owners, regardless of what their background is, because we can talk about the same problems because our dogs are all crazy,
Yeah.
and we can have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that the beautiful thing about dog lovers and cat lovers too is that that we can learn so much from our pets.
Yes.
And I think if we can be more like them, society learns a whole lot more. And we get a microcosm of that at these festivals. We get a glimpse of what society could be like in a way. I've not, at Dog Lovers Festival, I've never, well, again, limited experience, I suppose, in running these shows, but I've never seen people get cross at each other,
Yeah.
visitors, people walk around with big smiles on their faces. And
Mm.
that's, gosh, shouldn't life be like that?
Yeah. I know it does have such a sense of sort of partnership and collaboration and community when you go through the events, because there is that common value that we all share when you're attending those events where your animals are so important to you. So
Yeah. Well, it's a
it's
given, isn't it?
yeah,
You know that
yeah,
that person across the aisle from you is somehow like you. And look,
yes,
I've run shows in different sectors that have been about community, and I find the same thing in all of those
mm,
events. I founded a show called Motor Classica, which was for the classic car community.
mm,
And basically, what it did, without going into too much detail, is it brought owners of very expensive classic cars together in a competition environment,
mm,
and then the doors would open for visitors to come and look at all of these cars, and some of which they've only ever seen in books before. They're
yeah,
rare or particularly special. Um, and what I noticed about that event is it was about storytelling. It was about community, and we could see a person that owns a Ferrari talking to a person that has a Mini Minor, having
yeah,
a conversation that brings them together, finds uh, the common ground, and engages their passion at a similar level. And those people might not necessarily normally meet in real life, but by being part of this community, they come together and they
yeah.
find commonality. Um, and it's like that in shows that bring together community, and I think that that's what makes them so very special.
So being involved in live events for so long, have you noticed any particular trends that in general, just with consumer live events that have come to the surface, especially since COVID?
Yeah, for a long time, not for a long time, for probably 6 or 7 years, we've been talking about the festivalization of events, and
Yeah.
what does that mean? Well, for me, it's about experience. It's about providing authentic experiences. It's about providing a level of immersion and engagement in an event. I think that, pardon me, pre-COVID, people would go to live events and kind of be a spectator. I want people to be part of the story, if that makes any sense. I
Yeah.
want my audience or our audience to come in and really kind of get engaged with the show, engage with the brands that are there, look for opportunities to meet with dogs and cats and so on. So I
Mm.
think that a lot of events are evolving in that space. events broadly are looking for more ways to find a level of deeper engagement, of deeper immersion in their events, as
Yeah.
opposed to the spectator passing through and engaging where they want. And some shows out there are doing it really, really well. And some shows struggle to do it because they're still stuck in 2012, and look, it's I challenge my team every day. I say, let's do less better. And where's the point of immersion? I ask them. Where are we really engaging on an authentic level with our visitors, with our customers, to give them an experience that they won't forget?
Yeah.
And is this execution of that plan the best or the most effective? And if it's not, get rid of it and let's find something else, or let's do something else better to get
Yeah.
that result. And I think so. What we're engaging on now is we're engaging on a process, if you like, of assessment of our event and every step involved in it. And does it work? Does it provide reward? Does it immerse and engage and inspire? If it does those things, then great, we keep it. If it doesn't do those things, it's out the window and let's do less better.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So before we come to the end of this podcast, I want to ask you for some of your top expert tips, if that's okay.
Oh,
Can
shoot.
you can you tell me what's one big mistake pet brands make when participating in or sponsoring dog festivals? What's the biggest mistake you see them make?
Oh, absolutely. Well, not preparing
Yeah.
and thinking that the organizer is going to do everything.
Yeah.
They're
Great.
the two big ones, and they go hand in hand.
All right, fantastic. And then for pet businesses looking to get into live events, what advice would you give them to stand out in a crowd?
Well, I'd say call us. I'd say be honest and open about what you want to achieve, and then we can collaborate with you about how to best achieve that. And look, if we get to a point where we say, you know what, we're not the right show for you, we'll be very
Mm,
transparent about that too. I don't want
yeah,
to be offering the world to a company that A, it's a stretch to afford us, and B, I know aren't going to get something out of it.
yeah,
I will only, I'll only work on those companies that I think, they've really got a good shot here. We can help them.
yeah.
So I say, standing out from the crowd, well, firstly, work with us. Work with us. Be open. Be collaborative with us, and then we can help you. But I come back to that point. What's your point of difference? Why should I, as a visitor, engage with your brand?
Mm,
What's so special about you? Know what that is and lean into it, because that's your point of difference. That's what makes you different to the big brands. It makes
yeah.
you different to the small brands. It makes you stand out from the crowd.
And if anybody's been listening to this episode and they're like, right, I'm all in, I want to start doing live events, what's the best way for them to take the next step and get in contact with
Well,
you?
I mean, give us a call, drop us a line. Our websites at dogloversfestival.com.au and catloversfestival.com.au. There's a form on there that you can fill out. Someone will get straight back to you. And have that discussion with us, and we can talk you through it, whichever city that might be that you're interested in, and we'll advise you to the best of our ability. And look, we're not perfect. We don't always get it right, but we really, honestly, we try to.
Yeah.
And we're like everybody else, understand that we're not some big corporate entity. My goodness, I'm sitting here in a shared office
Yeah.
with dozens of other small companies.
Yeah.
We're here doing what you do. And when we get it, we get your businesses, and we get the struggles and the challenges that you face every day. We face them too, but we're here to find solutions for you.
Fantastic. And we'll include all the information in the show notes anyway, so that everybody's got
Great.
those links there and how they can get in touch with you guys. But what's next for Pet Projects? Do you guys have anything, any new exciting collaborations or projects you want to let us know about, let us in on that we haven't
Um,
discussed already?
I think that we're always on the lookout for new
Mm,
opportunities and new markets. We're always exploring them. The timing isn't always right for a great idea.
yeah.
Sometimes you've got to wait. Um, and I think that it's fair to say we've got a few things on the boil at the moment. They, when I used to work in the theatre, the standard response that you were supposed to give to a question like this is many projects at various stages of development.
Yeah.
And that's all you ever tell them.
Yeah. Keep
And
the
so I
secret
will say
strong.
that we've got various projects at different stages of development.
Fantastic. No, that's great. Thanks, Paul. It was great having a chat with you today, and we're all excited and looking out for those new projects that are coming. So, and I'm excited to see the new app that you have for pet brands at the next show, or next festival, which would be
Oh, and check
fantastic.
out the all new website too, because the new
Yeah.
website's really cool.
Yes, yeah, and I love the branding you guys have. It's just so
Oh,
exciting and has great energy behind it. So,
yeah, thanks.
thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. I know our
It's
listeners are really going to find this valuable. So, thank you.
it's a pleasure, Tarryn. Thank you so much for having me, and to all your listeners, good luck.
Thanks, Paul.
Pleasure. Thank you.